Okay, and it says we are now live. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm Tyler Ellison, and I am joined by my two lovely hosts, Yahaira and Marcia. Hello, guys. Thank you both for being here.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad. I'm feeling so joyous to be here with you.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Welcome to the September Q&A. We're rushing this year. It's almost ending.
It's true. Yeah, it's definitely picked up. It's for sure picked up. It's an interesting sort of energy to hold. And I guess what I mean by that is it feels like time is accelerating, but meanwhile, while that's happening, the ability to dive into presence and savor every experience feels incredibly heightened. So in my own world, it's felt like this process of sort of being permanently in the now whilst watching time just accelerate. And it's been a cool sort of paradoxical state to be in. And if you felt that way, feel free to type that into the comments. What is your experience with the passage of time? How has that been for you? So I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. We're going to dive in and we'll do our Q&A. Before we get to the Q&A, Ryo, we'll talk about the upcoming September transmission, which is going to be on Thursday, the 29th at 1 p.m., where you can join us on Zoom and you can receive a special transmission from Ryo, or he's going to give you leading edge information. We do another Q&A there where you get one-on-one time with him. And then we do a special meditation to crystallize into our aura and energy body all of the teachings that he shares in the beginning monologue and lecture. So I invite you all to join us for that. In a few hours after this live stream, we're going to have a ticket link in this description. So just review this live stream video in a couple hours, and we should have that link up. In addition to that, if you want to stay active with all the cool stuff happening in the Ryo world, join our Facebook page, the Ryo channeling page, and you're going to meet a bunch of cool people that are all into this material. Some of them have been into this material since I got started. Some people are new, but you'll find some family, you'll find some community there, and it's really a wonderful page. Whenever I scroll it, I'm always heart opened when I read what's happening there. It's a nice contrast to all the other pages on Facebook. I'll look on some pages and I'm like, oh my God. And then I look at the one I'm doing with Yahaira and Marcia, and it's like, oh, this is a fresh breath of fresh air. I can really just dial in and see what people are thinking, what they're talking about. So you'll find a lot of cool stuff there. We also have a Patreon, and you're more than welcome to join us there, where we teach esoteric lessons. We teach classes on magic. We teach channeling and all types of things. The channeling thing is going to be our newest installment in that, where I give tips. I talk about how I get started. That's going to be an upcoming series that we do on the Patreon, but you can get special Ryo transmissions there, and it's an abundant resource. So I invite you to check that out. And now I'm going to go ahead and get into the state. I'll bring Ryo through and you'll be able to interact with him. So enjoy. And once more, thank you all for your support and for being here for this wonderful conversation and experience we get to share together. It is our species' highest joy and passion to be able to interact with you all in this unique way through this particular channel this day. Our upcoming transmission, which shall take place on September 29th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is titled The Breath of the Divine. And in this transmission, we shall talk to you about the nature of what you call your multiverse. We will talk to you about how Source creates all realities simultaneously, and how Source also has the experience of creating different universes in a linear way, in a linear fashion. We will talk to you all about how this relates to your own respiration, how this relates to your breathing, for you are in that way a microcosm of the macrocosm. You are all little sources. So we'll speak to you all about how you are actually doing the same thing. We will talk to you about how the breath works with the different elements to give rise to manifested and unmanifested realities. And you will find that through this transmission, that source awareness within you will become active. And it will be like a seed that begins to germinate. And through your focus, through your attention, it will begin to grow and grow and grow. Through understanding the mechanics of how the macro source works, you will understand more deeply how your own micro source works, and you will understand its mechanics and how these mechanics are deeply entangled with your breathing. So it will be, in many ways, quite expansive, quite illuminating, but also very simple, because Source in many ways is infinite. And in a certain sense, you could say it is almost untangible because of its infinite nature. So we are going to simplify the infinite in a way that allows for you to understand it, in a way that allows for you to relate to it, in a way that allows for you to experience it within yourself. So it's not abstract. So it's no longer perceived, and we're going to be a little joking here, as a man in the sky. Rather, you'll begin to perceive it as an unconditional presence within you, that you fundamentally are, that you have come from, and that you will one day return to. So we invite you to this exciting event, and now we make ourselves available to each of you for your questions. Please type them into the chat. Be as clear as you can possibly be, and we will pick some questions to explore. So thank you thus far for your attention in this opening dimension of this transmission.
Thank you so much. Greetings, Ryo. How are you?
We are joyful, we are ecstatic and delighted to be here. And how are you on this day?
Oh, very contagious when you're in energy. I always love interacting with you. I really do appreciate it a lot, a lot.
Yes, yes. And we appreciate it as well. And we thank you for all that you do. And we thank you for exploring with us in this way.
Oh, yes. So the first question we have here is, I'm amazed by the idea of conundrum, or in your ancient language, eniati, which is a puzzle to ponder as a way to rewire the brain and expand. Would you like to pose a conundrum to us today?
Sure. Well, we'll talk about the idea of a conundrum. In terms of what you have on Earth, you have the idea of what is called a koan. And this is very popular in what you would describe as your Zen Buddhist traditions. One of them being, please make the face that you were born with. It's something that can't really be answered. It's something that can't really be described fully. But as you contemplate it, you become more aware of that original source dimension. That's the purpose of the conundrum exercise that was shared with all of you, because when you contemplate these things, you begin to recognize that you can't fully grasp them. And some people will register not being able to fully grasp something as sort of missing it. But the idea is that which is fundamental cannot truly be grasped, because that which is fundamental is infinite, and you are living in a reality framework where there is limitation. Therefore, experiencing the infinite while in a limited reality can be rather challenging. You can't do it physically. So you have to rely on your consciousness. So as you contemplate these things, because you can't grasp it fully, a sort of space opens within you. And if you are sensitive to that space, you will begin to channel through you that fundamental oneness, that source energy that all of these experiences emanate from. One moment. The following is a rather simplified version of what you might describe as a conundrum or a koan, and we'll phrase it like this. Who were you before you were born? Who were you when you dreamt? And who will you be once you die? Pay attention to these three things. You may not be able to grasp intellectually the answer to these things. And that's because there's not really a fundamental answer to these things, at least not one that can be discussed fully using words. As you contemplate these three things, as you contemplate these 3 points, you will find that because a fundamental answer cannot be grasped, that spaciousness then reveals itself. Because as soon as you grasp, as soon as you say, oh, I know, here it is, I have the answer, you've created a limitation. But when you do not grasp, there is no limitation. Instead, there is the spaciousness that allows for you to experience more of that source dimension, which is actually dimensionless. And we'll get into that in the transmission on the 29th. So contemplate these 3 things. Contemplate them as you go throughout your day, because you can do this while in a meditative state, and that can be incredibly useful. Simply just ask one of those questions we shared and just reside in spaciousness and see what comes. And that can be powerful. If you ask yourself those questions as you go throughout your day, doing your human things, you'll find that you're able to hold the paradoxical energy of being a limited being through having chosen an incarnation. All incarnated beings are limited in that way. And you'll be able to simultaneously hold with that being the infinite, being limitless, being boundless. And you'll start to experience more of that source energy, more of that oneness as a part of your conscious daily experience.
Hello, Ryo. Nice to talk to you again.
Yes, so exciting to speak to you as well. How are you this day?
Very, very good. I'm very pleased to be here today with all of you.
Yes, as are we.
All right, the next question would be, could you describe the nature of the body consciousness and how it experiences the death process?
Excellent. So in ancient times, it was believed that an individual did not possess one soul, but actually had several. And the soul of the body is in many ways what you would consider to be a soul that is very much paired with the lower dimensional realities and the earth. So when we talk about lower dimensional realities, what we're actually talking about is what you describe as your inner earth dimensions. The body consciousness, which ancients thought of as a specific, discrete, unique soul, receives information from these lower dimensions, from these lower realities. So at the moment of death, the idea is that the body consciousness stays with the body and is broken down by the earth. Its elements are recycled and its elements will be utilized to create the idea of different forms of biological life. Now, within that body consciousness, there are the experience of the organs within your body, the cells within your body. Each of the structures within the physical body have what you would consider to be spiritualized potentials. As you ascend, as you grow spiritually, you, in a sense, open up the spiritual dimensions of the cells and of the organs, and you actually begin to extract the body consciousness from the dense physical material that is the organs, that is the cells. And through accessing that hidden spiritual energy, you begin to spiritualize it. You begin to bring it with you in your ascension process. And in certain cultures, specifically Tibetan cultures and East Asian cultures, there were reports of ascended masters who would die physically, and they would leave no body. There would be no body to bury. The only thing that would remain would be teeth, nails, and hair. And this is because these practitioners, these masters, would extract all of the spiritual energy from the body consciousness. They would spiritualize, they would etherealize all expressions of energy within their physical structure. They maximize the spiritual potential of the body. You might think of this as they fully transform the energies of the lower self completely. So you also have the ability to do the same thing. As you evolve, as you ascend, and as you anchor that ascension into your body, you begin that same process. You start to transform the energies of the body. Now, many people don't spend time doing this. They live a life that is, in your classical terms, rather earthbound or rather earth-centric. So when they die, the physical body still maintains a great deal of that untapped spiritual potential. That untapped spiritual potential is still a deep part of you in this experience. So that energy gets broken down by the earth and is in a certain way recycled. In all traditions across the board, in your Buddhist traditions, in your Taoist traditions, in your Hindu traditions, in your Native American traditions, there is the idea of what you call hell realms. Now, it's not as if hell is an actual place that you go to where you burn and suffer. That's not really how it works. But the idea is that breakdown of the physical body, because it's entangling with the idea of lower dimensional realities, will cross paths with some of those what you might call lower astral forms. And because your consciousness is both of the spirit and of the body, you can experience the idea of heaven and hell simultaneously during the death process. This is what in Buddhism is described as the bardo. So when the body still holds on to that energy and breaks it down, utilizing the earth, a type of experience that might be similar to a hellscape can be had. However, your spirit, which ascends upwardly, experiences the joys, the pleasures of what you call the upper worlds, the heavens. And what you would consider to be your soul is experiencing both simultaneously. That's what's described as the bardo. It has to do with the earth breaking down untapped spiritual potentials and the spirit experiencing the joys, the ecstasies of the heavens. So this body consciousness is what you would describe as the lower self. It is the self of impulse. It is the animal self. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's the dimension of you that is the least evolved. Now, when you look at your animal kingdom, you can clearly see that you have evolved in some tremendous ways. So your lower self is incredibly sophisticated. It is a reservoir of potential. It's a reservoir of power. And if you know how to extract that spiritual power from it, the lower self is an incredible ally. It will teach you the secrets of nature. It will teach you the secrets of the earth. It will teach you the secrets of gemstones and herbs. It will teach you how to live in accordance with nature, and it will assist you in understanding the cyclical phenomenon that take place within your natural world. So the lower self is a master teacher. It's just that many of you have, through conditionings, shunned it, viewed it as evil because it is somewhat animalistic. It has desires. Sometimes it has vices. Sometimes it has compulsions. But when that lower self energy is maximized and is transformed, you extract that spiritual potential from it, and through your heart, through your alignment with source, it is transformed, and you, in a sense, immortalize or etherealize those lower self energies in a positive way that strengthens and nourishes your aura, your soul body, your spirit body. So we'll describe it like this. The higher self represents the dimension of you that is permanently connected to the upper worlds, to the heavens, to the spirit realm. The middle self is what you would consider to be your conscious self, your conscious mind in many ways. And the lower self is very much connected to the body consciousness and is connected to subconscious. So this is a little bit about the body consciousness and how it entangles with your physical reality experience and some of the experiences that can be had during the dying process.
Next question. What is the possibility for the global adoption of Bitcoin as a legal tender, and at what speed that process can happen?
Sure. So we'll talk about it like this. It's already being accepted as a legal tender in certain countries. Now, many of these countries that are accepting it as a type of legal tender are in a certain way attempting to rebuild their economies. They're attempting to rebuild their infrastructure. So they see this as an innovative way to assist in the country's prosperity. So countries that are heavily influenced by what you would call centralized banking, these countries are less likely to adopt it, specifically because there's already a system there that is allowing for certain groups within that system to prosper financially. So some of these countries may view Bitcoin as competition to the status quo. These countries are less likely to adopt it. Now, we're talking about it on, let's just say, a national level, entangled with the idea of what you would consider to be governmental expressions of finance. However, as many of you are already well aware, certain businesses will accept Bitcoin as the idea of tender, and that's fine. This is likely how it will begin. Certain industries, certain businesses will accept Bitcoin as a valid form of currency for purchasing services and goods. And should enough businesses and individuals do this, the governments will be put in a position where they will either have to regulate it or they'll have to accept it as it is. If it is accepted because of this, it will likely become the idea of a parallel currency, a parallel form of tender. So in developing countries, it is more likely to really begin there because their financial systems have not really been serving them in a positive way. So these individuals whom are present in what you would consider to be third world countries may be much more enthusiastic and much more open to adopting these things because they view it as a way to give themselves a fresh start and to increase the probability of prosperity. So this trend of utilizing digital forms of currency will continue. As your society gets more technologically centered, it's likely that it will, as a currency, increase, paralleling your technological developments. So it is, let's just say, a stepping stone. But keep in mind, it's still based in the idea of what you would call your capitalistic system. It's just another expression of that. And it is not necessarily benign, for as you know, the idea of mining Bitcoin also costs physical resources. It's not a totally neutral thing. So it is a stepping stone. And in a certain way, you could say it is a step away from working with centralized economic systems like central banking. So there are positive dimensions to this, but we see the positive dimensions as an echoing of what is to come, which is the idea of greater levels of financial freedom and financial autonomy for your people. And this type of, you could say, liberation from financial systems that are not working in your favor will parallel what you describe as open contact. Because by the time open contact happens at full speed, your species will be more or less completely integrated with your collective higher selves. And once that happens, everything within your society will change, including how you work with finances, how you work with monies. All of that will shift. So we see Bitcoin as an echoing of that next step in your species' societal development. We do not necessarily see it being the permanent paradigm that you all choose and settle with, but it is a stepping stone that's designed to help you move to a new paradigm that is based on equity for all. So it is useful. It still is born of the same mindset that has birthed your modern financial system, but we see it as an expression of that is more positive in a way and emphasizes the idea of financial autonomy for the individual. So it does represent greater levels of equity. There is utility in it. However, we remind you there is also an environmental impact to it. So it's not completely benign. So keep these things in mind. Use it if you're drawn to it. It can serve you. It can be a powerful tool.
Could you tell us about general reason why certain people who have higher density past incarnation than third density incarnate on Earth, which is more lower density? Will you define them as wanderer?
So we'll talk about it like this. Higher density souls, which is a funny sounding word because when you say higher density, it almost sounds like they are more dense, but we understand what you're talking about. We'll use the word higher dimensional. It's a little clearer for people that are listening that are less familiar with these terms. Higher dimensional beings will choose Earth incarnations because there is greater levels of possibility here. And some of these possibilities are not available in the idea of higher dimensional realities. So think of it like this. When you are a higher dimensional being, you are not physical. You're either quasi-physical, like we are, or you're completely non-physical. You exist within a spirit body. These higher dimensional realities are incredibly useful. It allows for souls to absorb higher dimensional energies that grow them, that nourish them. Imagine being able to absorb the energy from a sun directly without it burning you up. Rather, the energies from that sun inflame your heart with passion. They activate your spiritual centers. They guide you towards greater levels of enlightenment. That's what these higher dimensional realities are like. In a certain way, you could say that they are more yang. They are more positive. And in that way, you could say that they are, in a sense, based in an imbalanced polarity. Now, we know that might sound strange, but think of it like this. Souls desire to have all the necessary experiences needed for their holistic growth. If you stay in a reality as a soul that is purely positive, while that is useful, it will eventually become a limitation that you need to move on from because the positive energy can only teach you so much without the negative energy to contrast it. So when you are basking in the light of source, it's easy to say, yes, I know my true nature. Yes, I know my purpose. Yes, I know we are one. It's easy because that's all you're surrounded by. It's another thing to take that knowing and to then test it out in a polarized reality like Earth. Earth is sort of like, you could say, a spiritual testing ground where you get to really show yourself these ideas. Through experience, you reveal to yourself these fundamental truths through experience, through challenge. You're able to show yourself as a spirit that these things are fundamental to you. And when you test these things through overcoming negativity, it's almost like you're developing muscles. It makes you stronger as a soul. It makes you stronger as a spirit. So these higher dimensional souls that exist within these positive light realms will come to Earth because it allows for them to refine that positivity. It allows for them to sort of test out what they're capable of through overcoming challenges. When you overcome challenges on Earth through the idea of remaining in a positive state, you crystallize that positive energy in a physical way. We had mentioned the idea of extracting the energies from the body and spiritualizing them. When you overcome that negativity through remaining in the heart, you are also spiritualizing your physical form. You're extracting that spiritual potential. You're making it manifest through the overcoming of challenge. In addition to this, the Earth also allows for you to experience physical pleasure. It allows for you to experience physical sensation. It allows for you to experience the idea of being a finite being. It allows for you to experience the idea of sort of being a half animal, half God, half animal, half goddess. It allows for you to experience the nature of the Earth, the nature of cycles, and most importantly, it allows for you to experience time. It allows for you to experience linear time, which is also a very, very special experience of time that is truly only available in its fullness within physical reality experiences. Because when you're in a non-physical experience, when you're in a pure light realm, time's not linear for you. Things are happening in a very multidimensional way. But when you focus your experience of time linearly, you get to experience yourself as a character in a story. You get to experience change over time in a way that's designed to develop your character and your personal story. So there are many things available to you on Earth that are not available even in these highly positive light realms. So these souls will come here because they're able to experience all types of different things. You have all been in those realms, for you all emanate from the source. In terms of the next level, paralleling your universe, the star world is sort of one level below the source level in terms of manifested reality matrices. So you have all existed in the stellar realm. Every single person on your planet has had lifetimes within these highly positive light realms. These are the realms of the star world. After this, your consciousness densifies a little bit more and you begin to incarnate still as a quasi-physical and sometimes non-physical expression within the astral and mental planes of the planetary bodies that exist within your galaxy. And you grow and develop yourselves here as well. The next step in the densification process is lifetimes within a physical body, in a physical reality. So you have all trickled down throughout these different layers and levels, reaching Earth, because that allows for your consciousness to develop holistically. Once you're on Earth, you have the opportunity to ascend back up into the source. You have the ability to ascend up into these higher planetary worlds, up into these higher star worlds, up into the source once more. And every time an individual does that, anytime an individual climbs what you call Jacob's ladder, they enrich the source, they grow the source, and they actually become a source. When you re-merge with the source, you become a source yourself. This is why so many spiritual traditions were obsessed with the idea of perpetually focusing on the divine, specifically at the moment of death. So that way they could merge with the source once more, allowing for themselves to become one. But this is why souls come to Earth. You are all in the process of becoming gods, of becoming goddesses, of becoming sources yourself. You're already a micro source, but when you ascend into the macro source as a human whom has passed, you get to become a source with the magical potentials that a human being possesses. You are truly a balanced microcosm as a species. It's not this way in other realms. So there's more possibility here. And this is why souls are drawn to Earth.
Could you provide a permission slip for manifesting while using the circle of manifestation of source?
Well, there's many ways to do this, but one of the things we would advise is imagine that you are perceiving this circle representing source. And as you gaze into this visualized circle, begin to imagine that the circle glows with a white light. Use your breath to make this white light brighter and brighter and brighter. Every inhale, see the white light glow. Every breath hold between inhale and exhale, feel that chi pressure intensify the visualized white light. And then every exhale, see the white light get even brighter and charge this circle of white light representing the source energy with your breath. Do this for about 10 breaths. And then begin to visualize in that white light sphere the desired reality you would like to experience. It is important that you imagine what that reality feels like physically. You imagine what that reality feels like emotionally. You imagine what that reality feels like mentally, and you imagine what that reality feels like spiritually. And once you have immersed yourself in that way, speak your intention, speak your will into the manifestation. Source, it is my will to experience X, Y, and Z. May I experience it in a way that is pleasing. May I experience it in a way that is balanced. May I experience it in a way that uplifts me and everyone in my life. May I experience it in a way that manifests utilizing divine timing, so on and so forth. And then once you have commanded the energy, inhale once more and see the ring, the sphere, the circle of white light glow. And then on your exhale, see it expand into infinite directions. So all directions, all dimensions around you are completely coated in that white light, almost like the white light ring or circle pulses and emits a near blinding glow of light in all directions. and then spend a moment just basking in this visualized infinite white light and breathe it into you. Breathe it into you, and as you breathe, feel that your environment, this white light environment you've created, is breathing with you. And just stay there for 2 to 5 minutes. And then when you're finished, let go of all visualization and just dwell within that inner darkness that you experience when you close your eyes, that inner spaciousness. Just breathe and relax. When you're ready to end the exercise, just clap your hands, know that it is done. Massage yourself a little bit to help you reground, recenter, and go about your day. You can repeat this exercise 2 to 3 times a day. The more you do your manifestation rituals, the stronger the manifestation will be. The manifestation requires a certain amount of energy. Whenever you're doing a manifestation exercise, you're aligning with a specific parallel reality where that manifestation has already occurred. And you're becoming the self that linearly gets to experience it. In order to experience that parallel reality, you must become an equal vibrational match to it. If you are not a vibrational match to it, it won't be able to reach you. So this exercise repeated allows for you to entrain your aura to be a total vibrational match for that reality. So repeat this frequently. If it is a very powerful thing you're looking to manifest, you will need to repeat it more. If it's something simple, if it's something small, you might not need to repeat the exercise all that much, but we would advise that a minimum is practice this exercise 3 times a day for 1 week. This will really crystallize that experience that you're calling forth. If you're able to, practice it at the same time each day. Create a sort of routine that your life orbits around. If you make this the center focus in your life that everything orbits around, your whole consciousness will orbit around it, thus increasing the probability of experiencing it.
How is splitting timelines timetable? It feels like that is happening more and more, but when will the next big shift happen?
Well, it depends what you mean by next big shift. So big shifts are happening all the time. You actually experienced one as a collective about 2 days ago. You're now experiencing as a collective sort of blank slate energy. It's almost like the canvas has been completely cleared so you can paint new expressions that will manifest into realities. Now, whenever the canvas becomes blank, it's not as if you're robbed of all the experiences you have had. You're able to take all of those experiences, both positive, negative, light, and dark, and you can then use them in a new way where the momentum is now very much aligned with whatever you determine it to be. So you recently went through one of these shifts energetically as a people about 2 days ago of your time. And this is very much paralleled with the energy of this month. In terms of your astrology, this month is ruled by Virgo. It's ruled by the Virgin. So the energetic portal you all moved through is one of purification. So that has manifested as a sort of, you could say, purifying of your collective momentum. So now whatever you focus upon will come to you more easily, both individually and as a collective. So these types of energetic shifts happen regularly. They're combined with, you could say, the energies of your planets and stars and your Earth as you move through the idea of different months, as you move through the idea of different seasons. These gateways open. So these types of big shifts, big changes, don't always have what you would consider to be world events that manifest as correspondence. Sometimes they do. When the war in Ukraine began, that was one of those energies that had so much power behind it that it peaked and expressed physically. But not all of the big shifts that you experience will do that. Some of them will. So there will be big shifts coming up, and some of these will manifest physically. We're not going to say too much about it right now because it's still early in development, but we will not leave you hanging. We'll give you something that is somewhat concrete so you know what to look for. But in certain countries on your planet, there will be a total reworking of the governmental organizations through the idea of the populations, the citizens, demanding it. Now, we're not talking about a worldwide revolution. That's not what we're saying. What we are saying is that certain countries, this type of process will take place. These are countries where governmental systems are more oppressive. If you pay attention to the countries where there are great levels of human rights violations, where there are greater levels of oppressions, these are the countries that will likely experience the idea of a total societal shift, a total governmental shift that the people instigate. There's already echoes of it happening now if you're paying attention. In terms of your planet, look towards the east. You'll see these things happening. So those will be some of the bigger changes that take place in the years to come. Right now, as we have said, it's early in development, but it's beginning. And if you're paying attention, you can see which countries are meeting the criteria we have mentioned. So pay attention, and these things are natural. Even though some of these things may be turbulent, they may be chaotic, they are needed ultimately because you are all birthing a new society. And if there are systems that are in contradiction to that new society, they won't survive. They'll crumble. So if you want to build an immortal system that does not get destroyed, but moves with the changes, moves with the seasons, moves with the elements in a harmonious way, ensure whatever systems you build, both personally and governmentally, are aligned, number one, with nature, are aligned with the idea of human sovereignty and autonomy, and are aligned with the idea of true equity, making sure all people are given what they need and making sure all people are free to follow their paths in a way that is uninhibited. These are the types of criteria that will allow for a country and an individual to flourish. So remember, a government is just a collective person. It's made up of little people. So if you wish to see powerful governmental changes, be it in your own country or worldwide, you must become the government you wish to see. Government translates as control of mind, governmente. So learn how to control your own mind. Learn how to control the idea of your focus, your attention, and your heart. Learn how to keep your heart open. Learn how to shine your heart into the hearts of others when you interact with them. And if you make that your baseline of how you experience reality, and enough of you do this, many things will accelerate and many things will change. So these are some things to pay attention to. We'll give one last detail, a little less related to governmental phenomenon. In terms of September, you have the idea of your upcoming equinox. So pay attention to this. Take advantage of this. This is a powerful gateway. It's a portal. Use it in whatever way you wish. But if you use it well, you'll find many things within your life will accelerate tremendously. That one is upcoming, and it is a great potential that can be accessed by you. So work with your natural seasons, work with your rhythms, work with your celestial phenomena. They're not arbitrary, they're not lifeless. These phenomenon impact what you call your unconscious. As we had mentioned earlier, the lower self is very much linked to the earth. And it's linked to the changes that the earth goes through. The earth is constantly absorbing the cosmic energies from planets and stars. Therefore, your lower self is heavily linked to what happens both physically on the earth plane, but also celestially. This is why your ancients talked about the idea of your astrologies influencing you. If the lower self is running the show, it will be like the phenomenon around you are guiding your every action. But when your higher self and middle self are running the show, you're conscious. You get to determine what happens. You can notice a certain energy, you can notice a certain presence, and you can do with it whatever you wish. But in order to be able to do that, you have to know yourself. You have to develop autonomy. So the reason we're saying this is these celestial phenomenon, these earthly phenomenon are powerful. They're portals. And once you make those phenomenon conscious, you get to determine how you relate to them. And you can use them to manifest things. You can use them to shift your timelines. So pay attention and have fun with it.
What can you tell us about the moon? What is the origin of the moon?
Sure. Well, the idea is that the moon is actually born of your Earth. It was formed early during your planet's development. Think of it as a dimension of the Earth that branched off through the idea of impact events that took place, and through the idea of gravitational forces, the branches of the Earth that were, you could say, blasted into space over time came together, formed a body. So the moon is born of the Earth. This is why, in many ways, the moon is often described as sister moon. Father Sun, Mother Earth, sister moon. The idea being that the Earth itself gave rise to this other feminine celestial body. So the moon is quite ancient, it is quite old, and it impacts life on your planet in tremendous ways. For as you know, your fertility cycles are largely linked to the moon. And the idea of your species' spiritual evolution is very much linked to the moon, because when the moon waxes and wanes, it directs energies up and down the body. On full moons, energies in general are drawn upwards towards your crown. And then as the moon begins to wane, the energies are drawn back down. Think of it like this: full moon is your crown, new moon is your perineum, your pelvic floor. So every full moon and new moon, it's like the energy is circling your body. It comes up your spine to your crown, comes down the front to the bottom of your body. So the moon is guiding your energetic evolution through its impact on energetic flow for your world. And the idea is the moon represents a portal to astral reality. So in one of our transmissions, we have talked about the idea of planets being founders. The moon itself is a conscious living being. It has within its aura astral realities, mental realities that different beings dwell within and live within. They have full lifetimes in those realms. So these beings will utilize the moon as a means of contacting your world. When you're dreaming and you're interacting with the idea of astral entities and extraterrestrials, so on and so forth, many of you are actually traveling into the astral realm of the moon, and you're interacting with the beings and multidimensionals that exist there. So, as you know, there is a light and a dark side of the moon. The moon allows for you to experience in the astral plane polarity. And that's incredibly useful because both positive and negative experiences can enrich you if you use them in a positive, constructive way. Now, not all planets have the idea of that light and dark side. However, because the moon is more linked to Earth, it also shares that idea of polarity. And because the moon is actually of the Earth, it shares that idea of polarity. So that's a little bit about the moon, but there's much more to unpack there. We've barely scratched the surface on it, but have fun with that.
A few in our CE5 group, including myself, are having very clear but quick glimpse type visions that we don't understand. Sometimes it's like a remembering, a knowing. A second later, it's gone. What are we experiencing?
You're experiencing contact, but the idea is the beings that make contact with you will create a sort of energetic distortion where once you interact with them, you immediately forget what has occurred once the interaction is over. And this is done to test your level of focus. It's done to test your level of will. Because if you're having that experience, even though it can be very mesmerizing, if you can remain conscious during it, you can actually crystallize it. So once the being leaves, you don't forget. So it's a matter of developing your focus, and it's a matter of learning how to command the energy. If you remain purely passive during the experience, you'll have a genuine experience, but once it's over, it's forgotten. This is something many beings do. And it's a way to test the evolution of your species. Because once you're able to retain the memory, this indicates you have a certain level of control over your conscious mind and over your energy. And the beings interacting with you will see that as a sign of maturity. And then they will begin to deepen the interactions. But if they depart in that way and you immediately begin to forget what has occurred, they will say, all right, they still need some time to grow. They're still learning how to sculpt their reality with their will. So learn how to develop your focus. Single-pointed meditation can be incredibly useful for this. Learning how to direct energy. is also very useful for this. Knowing how to use certain geometries like pentagrams or hexagrams, things like this, to create certain energetic effects will be incredibly useful, because when you're having that type of experience, you're in an astral state. Therefore, you can utilize astral energies to create changes within that experience that will augment or shift that overall energetic vibration, thus allowing for you to be able to will your conscious mind to remember what's happening. But if you remain totally passive during it, once that experience is over, the forgetting will happen. So be active, be an active participant. It will take learning to balance the idea of relaxation with activity, because if you're too focused, if you're too awake, if you're too on it in that way, you might not be able to relax enough to go into the altered state to allow for the experience to happen. But if you can totally relax, allow the experience to happen, and then become active within it, you will be able to command the energy. And that will translate as being able to retain memory.
I was once very high and could easily see the energy field of the person across the table. A lamp with yellowish light was right above him and the night sky at his back. What conditions would you recommend for aura photography with present-day digital equipment, and what are ideal settings to then edit the image with using common presets such as contrast, brightness, saturation, etc.?
All right. Well, one of the things we'll talk about is the idea of exploring different modes of capturing light. So you have the idea of infrared photography, thermal photography, being able to capture non-visible expressions of the light spectrum in relationship to what is visible and invisible to your human eye. In addition to this, we would also recommend the idea of playing with shutter speed. The longer the shutter is open for when a photo is taken, the more movement of light you will be able to perceive through the photograph. So we'll talk about it like this. If you have everyone remaining totally still and you take a photo with the idea of a slow shutter speed, the shutter remains open for longer, you will detect the subtle movements of light within that photo. If no one's moving and you snap this photo, you will be able to see all types of light distortions within the photo. These light distortions represent moving light that you can't necessarily see with the naked eye, but will translate in the picture. So you can also play with this utilizing the idea of, again, different types of thermal photographies, different types of infrared photographies. If you have equipment that is sophisticated enough, use these other forms of, you could say, imaging with adjusted shutter speeds. So there's more that we could say about this, but start with this. Play around with some of these other ways of creating visual effects and play around with shutter speed, and you should find some interesting results.
While in physical reality, can belief and knowingness alone be more powerful than belief plus action for the manifesting anything?
Well, we'll talk about it like this. It depends on your level of self-development, truly. There are certain people on your planet that are what you would call masters, and they will just sit in a cave, and when they need an experience, they just call it forth, and the experience will come to them. Many of these people will develop followers whom provide them with everything they need. That's an extension of this person's, you could say, aura calling experiences towards them. Now, keep in mind, calling an experience towards you, even if you're not moving your body, is still an action. It's just not a physical action, but it's still an action. Whenever you focus on something, you're still doing an action. If you were to observe your spirit body, when you're commanding your energy in a specific way, your spirit body would appear to be moving. It would be doing things that bring that experience to you. It's a non-physical action. It doesn't mean it is fake. It doesn't mean it's not real. It's just an action that doesn't necessarily involve direct movement of the physical body. But keep in mind, even when you are doing energetic actions, guess what? Your body might be still, but your whole nervous system is reorganizing itself to call forth that reality. Your breath pattern will change. Your heartbeat will change. The hormones you make will change. This is still a physical action. It's just more subtle. So keep in mind, physical action can be incredibly subtle, can be incredibly discreet, and can be incredibly powerful. However, for those types of subtle physical actions to really shine, a certain level of spiritual evolution is required. This is why for many of you, grosser physical actions, more, you could say, obvious physical actions are needed in manifestation, because that's the level of consciousness many of you are utilizing. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's the level you're at, milk that for all it's worth. It's a superpower. Use it. So we'll talk about it like this. Even non-physical experiences require physical action. And you can manifest in either way. For many of you, it is easier to manifest utilizing physical tools, physical rituals, physical steps, physical actions, because that represents more of where you're at in your life. For other people who have spent lifetimes meditating in a cave, they can get away with subtle actions as their baseline tactic for manifestation, because that's the level they're at. So it's important to work at the level you're at and to not invalidate or judge that level. Because if you do that, you'll stagnate your process completely. So if you use physical tools, if you use physical rituals, if you use physical props and actions, validate that for all it is worth and really have fun with it. It's supposed to be fun. If you are opposed to taking physical actions, if you say, oh, I don't really want to, oh, I don't feel like it, oh, that's boring, oh, what's the point? Then really what you're experiencing is an imbalance with the idea of the earth element within yourself. A disassociation from physical actions in a judgmental way indicates that the earth element within you is out of balance. When the earth element is out of balance, an individual can become stubborn, can become hard-headed, can become lazy, can become lethargic. So if you are experiencing resistances towards physical action, it actually indicates an imbalance. It means there's something that needs to be done within your energy field that will create a healthy earth element. So pay attention to that. And remember, take physical actions that you enjoy. That's the other thing. Because any physical action can be a portal if you know how to utilize it in the proper way. This is what the tradition, quote unquote, of chaos magic is all about. Chaos magic is all about utilizing different physical phenomenon and sensations to call certain experiences forth, and it's incredibly potent. So take physical actions that you enjoy. Some people manifest through what you call sex magic. That's a physical action. That can work. You can do that. Use tools that you enjoy, and you won't resent or be opposed to taking physical actions to manifest. And we're not calling you out. We're not saying that you are personally resisting physical action. We're just speaking in this way because there are certain people that do. So we're just sharing this to be rather comprehensive.
In cosmic vision, what activates mediumship?
The idea of the spiritualization of the physical eyes. So in terms of visual qualities, your clairvoyance, the activation of the spiritual properties within the physical eyes is key. In addition to this, the activation of your third eye is also key. Now, we're going to give a tool here, but be responsible with this. It's important because it can create imbalance if it's done inappropriately. You can charge the physical eyes with white light. You can charge the third eye with white light. Do about 10 breaths of white light into your physical eyes. And as you visualize the physical eyes, feel the connection between the eyes and the brain. Feel how the eyes actually go deep into your brain and connect to it. Charge the whole structure up. So study the anatomy of the eye a little bit. Get to know each and every single part of your eye. And then in meditation, charge each part of the eye with a few breaths of white light. And as you're doing this, affirm to yourself, I have total clairvoyance. Let there be no doubt in your mind. Let there be no skepticism at all. Totally buy into it. I have complete clairvoyance as you're charging your eyes with white light. Do the same thing for your third eye and then begin your clairvoyant work. When you are finished, this is the most important part. This is what we meant about be responsible. Break the energy down. Pull the white light out of your eyes, send it into the earth. Make sure there's no white light remaining when you're done. The reason for this is your astral senses will stay on if you don't dissolve the white light, which means when you're around people, when you're in public, it's almost like the visual centers will be cranked up to 11. This can create imbalances through overstimulation. So be mindful, break the energy down when you are finished. Do not leave it in your eyes, or it can disrupt your nervous system through overstimulation, especially if you're living in the city or you're dealing with many people, if you're dealing with challenging relationships, that can be a catalyst for imbalance. So be cautious there. But in general, just charging these eyes with white light and the third eye with white light while affirming you have total clairvoyance will turn that on. But be respectful of this practice. That is important.
So just a time check, it's 2:08 your time.
All right. We will allow for the channel to return to a normalized state of consciousness. And we thank each and every single one of you for these wonderful questions you have shared with us. This dialogue and exchange has been so delightful for all of us. We look forward to seeing you at our upcoming event on Thursday, the 29th at 1 p.m., where we will explore the breath of the divine and the nature of universal and multiversal creation, and how you too are doing the same thing each and every moment. So, our unconditional love to each of you. Good day. Okay.
Those were so amazing questions. I love them.
Totally. Me too. That was a lot of fun. You guys asked great questions, and I love the answers. Really love the answers. Some cutting edge information. And come to the event, you'll get more of it. You will get much more of it. And you can actually talk to Ryo. So if he gives an answer just like we did here, you can further ask. You can parse through the answer, get even more specific, get more details. So it's a lot of fun. And thanks for being here, guys.
Yes,
really
and
nice to
and
have
they also, sorry, they also get the recording, for.
True that. Yes, that's accurate. So if you come to the event, you get the recording. You will always have that. It is your recording. So you'll be able to watch it, enjoy it. You can take notes, and I think you'll get a lot from it. Yahaira and Marcia, thanks so much for being here with me today. This was so delightful to do.
Yes, I love it. I love the interaction. I love the questions. I love the community. So thank you everybody for joining us every month. Thank you, Marcia, and thank you, Tyler, for having me always.
Very welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I had a lot of fun. It was a very good session. Very, very interesting answers and questions. So thank you guys for participating and being here and with this community that's getting bigger and bigger.
That's true. It's grown. We've gotten so many people join the Facebook group. Like the last 3 days, we've had at least like 10 people sign up for it. And I'm just blown away. And they're all real. They've all been on Facebook for over 15 years. It's how I screen. It's like this person made a Facebook yesterday, probably a robot. They've been on Facebook for 15 years. They're either a really good robot or they're a person. It's probably
Yeah, the community and the love is growing, and the teachings and the uses, the practical uses. So I love it. I'm always so grateful for this.
Oh, same here. Same here. Me too. I'm with you. I'm blown away. I do this, right? Like I do sometimes 3 to 4 sessions a day on certain days. And every time I'm blown away, because some of this stuff I know because people ask similar things, but a lot of the time people ask things I've never thought of. And sure enough, information comes out, and I get enriched too. So it's a really good time.
Yeah. And Ryo has this thing that sometimes the question, like for me, I don't even fathom like the answer that Ryo is going to give. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, it touched like so much. It's so simple,
Yeah. Oh, it's true. It's really true. And it's a fun thing, and I'll just speak briefly. I'll give like a little behind the scenes stuff, but a big thing I've been focusing on in my own process is the developing of omniscience, which is, the divine power we all have. So because we're all micro sources, we all have omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, omnisentience, right? We have all these God powers that are within us. And in yoga, they talk about them as cities, right? But as one ascends in their spiritual process, some of these things start to turn on. And in the magic that we teach, we do this on the Patreon, we can target certain cities, you can target certain abilities and use energy, use rituals to activate them. And, I've been doing that for essentially acquiring the knowledge of the divine mind. It's a main focus that I have, because what I do is sharing this information. So I try to organize myself and my practices in a way that allow for that to be streamlined. And I got to say, it's fascinating because when you ask for omniscience, right, or you ask for, let me see the unseen, let me know the unknowable, it's wild because at first you might assume, right, some angel or alien's going to come and give you universal information. That does happen. But what happens first is you start to see all the hidden parts of yourself. And some of it's very challenging. Like I did that exercise last night. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, all these like emotions and feelings, like this has been there, but I was just blind to it. And it ends up being really healing. But my mentor, talked about once you know something, you can't unknow it. So it will evolve you as a side effect. And that's why the ancients saw philosophy as like one of the highest pursuits, because once you acquire the knowledge, changes you forever, right? And the idea being when a person cultivates great knowledge and wisdom, they become like source. So they saw philosophy as a literal ladder to the divine. And I think that's why we're all drawn to this information, right? When this comes out, you're getting that streamlined and we start to feel each of us more connected to the divine. So it's a great practice. And so in love with it.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I learned so much from you and from your own experiences too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love sharing them. I see the last thing I'll say and then we'll sign off. But I know when I was getting really into channeling as a fan, right, listening to other teachers, I would become fascinated with the information. But then I'd see the person and I'd be like, well, who's this person? Like you're like a miracle. You're doing something, most people I wish they could do. Like, who's the person? I always wanted to know behind the scenes. I always wanted to know, like, what's this person's story? How are they doing this? Where is this coming from? So I try to share that myself to be like the person I wanted to see when I was younger, to help people know it's possible. Because what I am doing, it's, it comes from a lot of practice, a lot of training, but also like, this is something we all can do. It doesn't be vocal channeling, but we all have these divine skills and the divine persona that you can bring out. So I like sharing my experience because I feel good knowing what I do is an experience that is repeatable, that other people can call forth in their own way. And that's what allows for this to live on. Because it's like, if only I can do this, once I'm dead, then where's it go? Right? Then it's just on the internet and it's limited. But if a bunch of people know the steps, know the process, know the way, this type of thing doesn't have to go away, right? It becomes a part of future generations. So it's just a little bit of my role. It's why I do the Patreon. So these things can remain available for folks. They can hear my experience, know what worked, and get steps. But anyway, I'm being very long-winded, but I hope you're all enjoying it.
We did. Thank you.
We are.
Great. All right. Well, my friends, I'll sign off for now. My unconditional love to both of you and to everybody who has joined us today.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.